Hey there, welcome to the Intelligent Founder podcast. We're here to chat with some super intelligent and savvy entrepreneurs and business leaders who have built amazing companies using their big brain and strategic thinking. Hi, everybody. Today, my guest is a medical device entrepreneur and business leader whose passion is developing medical technologies. After spending many years in Boston Scientific, where he was involved in developing therapies related to peripheral vascular diseases, he co-founded a promising startup called VeinWay. Please meet Jordan Pollack, CEO of VeinWay.
Thank you, Leon. It's really nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining my podcast. And my first question about what is your aha moment when you decided to start your business? Do you remember this moment?
Yeah, of course, Leon. It's one of those moments you just don't forget, right? Fortunately, I've been involved with the MEDX Xelerator now for a long time. And in the introduction, as you mentioned, I worked at Boston Scientific. And so between those two connections, I was very fortunate to get the opportunity to connect to the MEDX Xelerator, and Shai Pollacker and Gal Atarot, the CTO here, who's been one of my biggest mentors, actually reached out to me during the COVID pandemic. And they had talked about an unmet need that they had identified that was very important to the market. And that, of course, is the unmet need around chronic venous occlusions and post-thrombotic syndrome, and the inability of physicians today to accurately and effectively treat these patients. And so they came to me and they said, and talked about how they had identified this and asked if I would be willing to take it on. I thought, wow, what a great opportunity this is to really help patients, and for me to really be able to share my passion, which is, of course, improving access to healthcare and patient care wherever I can.
Amazing, amazing. That's really tells something about you, really. So I think our audience will be interested what's unique in your company, and why we should consider this investment opportunity. So I just invite you to share the screen, and we will be happy to hear your pitch.
Happy to share it. So let's go ahead and get started. Screen share look good? See the presentation?
Amazing.
Excellent.
I like this color, actually.
Yeah, it's so these colors are our theme, part of VeinWay, because the blue, the purple, incredibly important for us. And
Yeah.
we'll go through the pitch here, just kind of high level, to make sure that I get kind of the important points in the first minute here, right? We're talking about the biggest unmet need in interventional radiology and vascular surgery, for that matter, today. And that, of course, is around venous recanalization, and why it's so difficult for patients to deal with their disease, their chronic venous disease and post-thrombotic syndrome. And then physicians really struggle to treat these patients because they have a lack of tools in the market today that prevents them from being effective healers. We'll go through our solution in the Traversa and why it's unique and novel, and it's the first dedicated tool for venous recanalization. And then I'll discuss some of our progress. We'll discuss the market, which is a rapidly growing market already valued at over $1 billion, and some of our early funding that we received, and of course, what the ask is at the end. So the unmet need, as I mentioned before, that was introduced by the MEDX Xelerator, to me, it revolves around what we call chronic venous occlusions. And these are occlusions that start as acute deep vein thrombosis, blood clots in the legs, and they progress over time. Many of these are not treated. They have to be caught within 2 weeks to be effectively treated. And even those that are caught within 2 weeks and treated, over 50% of these patients will return within 5 years with what's known as post-thrombotic syndrome. And this is a disease that a lot of patients suffer with for a long time. These occlusions in their veins go from the soft clot to a hard piece of rubber, much like a car tire or a chewed up piece of gum. These patients often are stuck in the healthcare system for years, going through cycles. Mostly because physicians today don't have the right tools to treat them. When they do decide to intervene on them in the cath lab, and many will actually choose not to intervene on them because of how difficult they are, they'll spend hours doing so, going through multiple tools. I've seen them go through over 100 tools trying to do this before, leading to $20,000 in expenses. And they even fail at times, meaning they've gone through all this effort to treat the patient and send them home without even placing a stent, which means that they've gone back after all this time in the cath lab exactly the same way they came in.
Mhm.
Here's an example of a case. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we watched this case where Dr. Stephen Black spent 4.5 hours attempting to cross an occluded stent in the iliac veins, and you can see it's just stabbing away with wires. And at the end of all this, he looked around and said, you know what, guys, 4.5 hours have gone by. I'm out of ideas. Let's go get some beer. So we really identified that this is such a big opportunity for us and for patients, because the Traversa, which is the first dedicated device for venous recanalization, is here now to help. Now, the device has a steerable needle on it, which allows it to bend from 0 to 60, rotate 360 around, and advance forward and backwards. And there's also a balloon on it, which actually absorbs the force. We noticed that during a lot of these cases, part of the reason that physicians struggle to cross is when you're pushing from outside the body with something very long, it just kind of collapses. So the balloon absorbs that force, and then the needle, with its 3 independent degrees of freedom, allow physicians and users to navigate in any direction that they need to go to cross.
Wow.
We have a broad indication with the FDA. We've already had a pre-submission, and we confirmed this around peripheral and central venous vasculature. So that also includes occlusions in the chest, in the superior vena cava. They have the same pathophysiology. And then a lot of those patients have indwelling dialysis catheters for hemodialysis. So we have a lot of opportunities where we can go. And the value that VeinWay and Traversa brings to our customers and to our patients, it's not just that the device works. The device works. It works very well. But it also is an enabler, because, as I mentioned in the beginning, there are so many physicians who don't even want to do this because of how difficult it is. And now you give them a tool that's in their toolbox. They no longer need to improvise. They've got that tool. They can pull it. They're going to treat more patients. And this is why we get involved. This is why any investor should get involved, is because inevitably we're all about getting more patients access to healthcare. Okay, so really quick on how the device works. You start by inflating the balloon, advancing the needle, then you deflate the balloon and you advance the catheter over the top. You do this as many times as needed to cross, which is why we can cross any length occlusion from long 20 plus centimeters to even short 1-2 centimeter occlusions. We've done animals. I'm going to actually quickly go through this one because I'd like to highlight the success of our human cases, in which we did a case at the University of Michigan in January. We recanalized a very long 20 centimeter occluded stent. And we did a case in Michigan in which we recanalized a short occlusion, but that the physician had recently failed on as well. So we've now been doing compassionate use cases, 2 of them, even before having approval. Physicians have been reaching out to us constantly asking how they can do this, because they have so many patients that they failed to even cross and recanalize with their current tools, that they're asking to do compassionate use cases with us. here is a great example. Here's the device in action here in the patient, and you can just see how that wire just passes. The needle penetrates the occlusion and the wire passes. It's a very clean case, and final result here with stent placed. So the next few slides I'll go through quite quickly, just kind of business cases. We're a class 2 device in the US, 510K, and class 3 in Europe. We're going to be doing a first-in-human clinical trial in an official structure, not outside of the compassionate use cases. We've already sat with the FDA on a pre-sub. We'll be kicking off with first patient in October, and that's part of the reason we're fundraising, is to finance this clinical trial. We'll do one later after approval that's much more powered, to statistically powered to detect the differences between the control and the Traversa. Touching on the market, I mentioned it's over $1 billion market opportunity. There are over 1 million patients sitting at home right now suffering, who aren't being treated, who are in desperate need of a recanalization tool, having the physicians bring them in. And additionally, the thrombectomy market is projected to be $2.6 billion, and thrombectomy is the procedure that is done on acute DVT. So if you think about that, 50% of these patients are going to come back with post-thrombotic syndrome. So right there and then presents a very large, over $1 billion market opportunity. Part of how would I also get to those numbers? 900,000 Americans get a DVT every year, 2 million Europeans, half of them come back post-thrombotic syndrome. This is a large, growing, and untapped market that is really ripe for disruption. So we're looking for people who can join us in opening up this market significantly and changing the conversation around it. Additionally, the major players are all getting involved with their own stents. Philips buying Vesper, Boston has VC. Yes, they recalled it, I'm aware, but they still made that acquisition nonetheless. Bard has Venovo and Medtronic Abre. There are also smaller players in Europe with stents like BlueFlow from Plus Medica. So we're seeing venous stenting really grow quickly, but they don't have the right crossing tools. And that's where VeinWay and Traversa comes in. These other crossing tools have not been effective on the market. If they were, there wouldn't be such a great opportunity here for disruption. Touching briefly on our reimbursement model, we're in a great position as well. We have reimbursement in both the US and Europe, in which they're already paying out for venous procedures. We're protected on the IP side. And we are also supported by one of the best advisory boards in the world. Dr. Michael Lichtenberg and Jerry O'Sullivan are two of the best physicians in Europe. And then Dr. Adam Farkas and Ayal Moag are here in Israel, and they've provided a lot of help for us. And then we have Mark Smith in the US, who's a vascular surgeon. I introduced myself earlier. And you introduced me as well, but Ben Friesen, my CTO, is also an exceptional engineer. He's got over 10 years of medical device experience, and he actually designed the implant at his previous company called Restore Medical. One of the important things that we're covering at the moment, and one of the things we're looking to do on our milestones for all investors who will be joining us, our first-in-human trial will kick off with our first patient in October. Then we're going to go to FDA submission, EU submission shortly thereafter. So we're looking to be on the market in the US by early 25 and mid to late 25 in Europe. We're currently raising $5 million to cover that trial and, of course, the expenses around submission and then clearance. So VeinWay also has a lot of potential as well. It's not just that when someone invests, they're investing in Traversa. The entire venous market has so much potential for new innovation. We can build on our device, on Traversa, because it's a platform device. Right now, it's just mechanical. It could be robotic, and it could have imaging, things like that. But also, there's room for improvement in the implants and the stents in the market. And those are also very large market opportunities. So with that, I will wrap up here and let you ask any more questions you might have around the presentation, Leon. Thank you.
Jordan, thank you very much. Amazing presentation. It looks like you are standing in a good position today. And I am personally came from medical device industry, specifically wearables industry. And it looks amazing and very promising. My first question is, everything looks very nice, okay? But usually I can be a little bit devil advocate, okay? What kind of risk you expect to have?
Right. So with any startup, there's always a few risks in medical. First of all, there's product risk, there's regulatory risk, and there's financial risk. I think those are the three biggest. Product risk. Of course, the product could not function as we intend. However, the compassionate use cases that we've done are already mitigating that risk, and we've demonstrated that the device works in humans. And of course, there's the risk going to the trial. Then when you add more patients, you might learn something new. Of course, the more compassionate use cases we do, the more confident we feel that we've mitigated the risk. There's always regulatory risk, right? Even though we've done a pre-sub with the FDA, there's a risk that they can reject any submission, IDE or data, or ask us to do more patients, which adds, of course, more financial risk to the company. And of course, being the financial risk is that sales and marketing, when you get into the launching of the product. So assuming that the regulatory goes well and the product goes well, now we have to convince the market that this device, which we've talked about as being a game changer, of course, it is that game changer, but we have to get others to see that as well. So these are always risks involved with any startup, no different for us. Of course, we have a plan in place to mitigate those risks as much as possible.
As I understand, your timeline is about 3-4 years to the market, right?
Well, we're actually we'll be commercial by early 2025. So we're looking at a year and a half to be on the US market, actually.
And what about your potential clients? So what they say, okay, I know they do some trials, but do they share with you something beyond these trials? That if it's okay, we will buy these devices, even we will buy your company. So do you have such conversation with them?
Absolutely. Those are great conversations to have. Many physicians around the world have been contacting us asking how they can either get the device to buy it or to participate in the trial. And the physicians who are participating in the trial already really are excited about it. So I have good reason to feel that they will purchase the device after the trial. And in fact, they've put in a ton of effort to participating in the trial, to helping us get ready, to recruit patients. This is seriously something that these physicians deal with every day. And there's seriously a need that bothers them. And we've now given them the tool. It's almost like handing someone the keys to the car that they've always wanted. It just changes their entire approach to the procedure.
Very interesting, but be careful to say about something disruption and disruptive. Disruption in healthcare, it's a very dangerous journey, because it doesn't happen very quickly, and people lose patience.
Sales projections, and the sales process of medical devices is a 3, 4, 5 year process. Absolutely.
Right. This is exactly. Let's move to some investment side. How much did you raise so far?
To date, VeinWay has raised $2.5 million.
And who are your lead investors?
So the money is split between grants from the Israel Innovation Authority, and we had a safe round, which we raised from our current shareholders, including another grant from the Israel Innovation Authority, friends and family, and a major strategic player in the industry participated in our safe.
Could you just name?
I cannot. It is not public.
Okay, very good. So our audience could apply you correctly, directly, and ask these questions, because I know some, and I can share that it's amazing company are interested to participate in your company. Okay, very nice. So the next step. So you are an Israeli company currently. Are you going to make your company in the United States? As you know, you are from United States. This is your country. So you came to Israel and created this company. So what is your next step about how you're going to catch up with the market in the United States and maybe next in the Europe?
Great. So as I mentioned earlier, the clinical trial that we'll be doing will actually be entirely in the United States. So we've already had our sites identified there. And therefore, we will be submitting for US FDA approval first. So we do plan on expanding there. We'll need an office in the US, of course. It's something we'll need to do before we go commercial. And then we'll submit to the notified bodies in Europe with the same data. And our plan is, assuming that they accept that and we don't have to add any additional data to it, then we'll also be approved in the European Union for sales, in which case we'll also need some kind of distribution center and office in the EU.
Yeah, it's not easy, but I see you can do everything what you want. That's very important. Okay, good. So my next question about what is your next step in fundraising? What kind of activity are you doing in fundraising, and when you are going to close this round?
Great question, Leon. We're currently in a Series A round, and we're raising $5 million today. At the moment, I'm speaking with investors. We're looking for the right investor who wants to join us, who wants to be a part of changing this conversation, who really wants to get involved in this exciting space, and honestly, where it's early with opportunities. Because even though venous disease has been around forever, it's now becoming trendy to have this conversation. And those who join will be on the cutting edge of changing that conversation and the standard of care in healthcare today.
So are you looking for venture capital, angel investors, or some corporate funds? So what is your target audience?
Our target audience is all of the above. So VCs who will do Series A, angel funds tend to do seed funds, but so Series A is on the lighter side of what they'll do. And then corporate is also very important because we want to partner with the leaders in the industry who understand the background, they know the disease state, and of course, they've been doing this for a very long time.
Despite the fact some of industry leaders are, as you said, your competitors. They're doing something differently, but at the same market and with similar outcome, right?
Yeah, and it could also be that, but the stenting is not a competitor, right? So when we pair up with a company that has a stent, it's actually great synergy to have a crossing tool with a stent, because if you can't cross the occlusion, then you can't place your stent. Right. So that's really where the great synergy comes from.
Oh, very interesting. Okay, so how many people is working in your company today?
Including myself, we're 5 full-time employees.
And okay, you are moving very fast with 5 employers. That's amazing. I really appreciate it. Okay, sounds interesting. Tell me a little bit more about yourself.
A little background about myself, Leon. As you mentioned earlier, I grew up in the United States, in Chicago. I moved to Israel about a little over 4 years ago now. And it was one of the largest decisions I had to make. But one of the things that I've always been passionate about is taking controlled and calculated risks. Not talking crazy risks, skydiving, those kind of things, but taking risks where I sat down and said, okay, what are the benefits? What are the risks? What can happen? Plus, minus, either way. But I've always believed in moving forward, because it's always been important to me in my life to try to find my fit and to find the fit for the company. And I also always had a dream to be an entrepreneur. My grandfather, who just passed away a few weeks ago, actually, was a 4-time. It's okay. He was 90, and he was a 4-time successful entrepreneur. And I know that if he could see me today, he would just be beaming with pride at the success. That isn't to say that we've accomplished everything, by no means. The older I get, the more I realize how little I know. But it is good to stop and take a look at what I've done, and what the team here at VeinWay has accomplished so far. And then, of course, looking forward, we have so many exciting things ahead of us.
Amazing. So you have entrepreneurial genes. That's very nice. Thank you for sharing. So, as I see, you think that to create company in Israel even better than in the United States. What do you think about it?
I think that Israel is one of the best places to start a company. I mean, it is Startup Nation after all. The Israel Innovation Authority provides a lot of easy to access funds for startups. It's how we got started. It's how a lot of others. And of course, there are a lot of venture capital firms here in Israel as well, and they understand the ecosystem, and they understand how investing works, and they understand how startup companies are built. Additionally, because we are the startup nation, I noticed that entrepreneurs really want to help each other out here. Whatever one may be looking for, whether it's an investment, whether it's a consultant for something, I can pick up the phone and call somebody, and I'd be able to find a highly recommended person to help fulfill whatever need I'm looking for.
Okay, sounds good. I also share with you your vision on making startup business specifically in Israel. We're coming to the end of our podcast, and I'd like if you can just remind our audience about your company, doing some very, very brief pitch. Elevator pitch, 60 seconds, just a reminder.
Thanks, Leon. Well, that's a great way to wrap up. Talking about improving access to healthcare for patients, right? That's all what we've been doing with VeinWay and Traversa. Traversa, we have a device here dealing with these chronic occlusions. There are millions of patients sitting at home and suffering because the physicians today lack the tools they need to effectively treat them. Traversa is really the first device dedicated and designed specifically for these occlusions. It is superior to the competition in its steerability, in its control, in its navigation. And we've already done clinical cases to validate it, including the ones we did in the US and in Germany just a few weeks ago. So if fundraising right now presents an opportunity for investors to really get involved in a company that is changing the paradigm of chronic venous disease treatment.
Thank you, Jordan. And thank you for coming to our podcast. And I really wish you a great success. And I would love to help with all my connections and capabilities for you to succeed in this very, very important business you created. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you, Leon. It was nice to be here.
Have a great week. Thank you.